C60 olive oil is a popular choice for people wanting to activate their full potential. Improved sleep, faster recovery and more energy are just a few of the amazing comments received from our customers who take a spoonful a day. Make C60 oil a part of your daily routine and see what it can do for you. Activate your potential today at thec60company.com.
And I'm going to start with climate change. I know climate change or not climate change again, but climate change is the very core of how the world is being transformed. If you look at the wish list of the cult or cabal, this global network directing human society, then what is demanded to save the world from climate change, human caused, they say in their hoax, ticks every box of the wish list. They want a centralized global tyranny dictating to every human, dictating their lifestyle in fine detail. And just look at what is being demanded by the climate cult, as I call it, but what's actually happening in terms of pressure to change lifestyles, language, everything because of climate change. And there's also a very clear list of characters, billionaires, who are pushing this agenda. And none more obviously than George Soros, the billionaire financier. He spends tens of billions of dollars, not least on a global network called the Open Society Foundations, funding so-called social justice woke organizations and climate change cult campaigners and organizations, when this guy couldn't give a damn about improving the lives of human beings. He has said publicly that he does not consider the social consequences of what he does in his financial wheeler dealings. He's just there to make money. And somehow the woke mentality that has bought this climate change hoax, hook, line, and the other thing, believe that this guy is genuine. And if you criticize him and expose him, it's not because of his behavior, which is appalling. It's because he's Jewish, and thus you're an anti-Semite, the usual defense protection racket of legitimate investigation and exposure. So wherever you look, manipulated people's revolutions and manipulation of mass immigration through what? Open society foundations, he calls them. Open society, open borders. That's what they're there to achieve. Because this elite wants the end of countries, and that's something else that the climate cult demands are incessantly leading to. We must have world government to impose what is necessary to save the world. And here we have a story this week about Soros, in fact two, which are classics of their ilk. One is pushing the agenda and the indoctrination of climate change, and the other is silencing those who are challenging the indoctrination and the narrative of human-caused climate change. And here's the headline: More chaos on campus. Soros pumps $1 billion into global education network to fight climate change and dictators like Trump and the leaders of China and India. I will translate that from the Orwellian. Soros pumps $1 billion into global indoctrination network, re-education network, to sell the illusion and the hoax of climate change, so the network that I represent can justify transforming human society in the way it demands. This is a man who talks about dictators and saving democracy when he couldn't give a damn about democracy. In fact, democracy, the will of the people, is his worst nightmare. This is the same George Soros who funded groups in Britain, a country which he has no connection to, was born in Hungary and lives in America, funding organisations campaigning to stop Brexit. Why? Because Brexit is not in line with the elite agenda. And a man who targets currencies of countries, makes a fortune doing it, playing those markets, and causes mayhem in many of those countries to the detriment of their populations. This man could not care less about you. He just wants, ludicrously, for you to believe that he does. So, because climate change is such a central pillar of the justification for global transformation, you would expect, of course, Soros to be massively involved in promoting it. So here's the story. Billionaire George Soros has unveiled a new ambitious project, creating a global university network that would save the world from climate change and rescue democracy itself from dictators like Donald Trump. Well, at least Donald Trump went through the process of election, whereas Soros is manipulating human society globally, having never seen a ballot box in his life, and he's defending democracy. I wonder if he was defending democracy when the Open Society Foundations go around manipulating and training agents provocateurs to trigger so-called people's revolutions like the Arab Spring, as it was called, to overthrow governments that what he represents want overthrown. What's that got to do with democracy, George? Eh? Open Society Foundations were fundamental in removing Yanukovych from the leadership of Ukraine in an American coup. So it says the 89-year-old. I mean, why would an 89-year-old want to spend all this money manipulating society on the scale globally that he does? Why? Because he represents the network that's doing it. And there is a deal. You make vast amounts of money, and considerable chunks of that money will be spent on advancing the agenda. And we're going to help you make that money, of course, which you are then going to, in considerable amounts, use to finance what we want to happen in the world. So it works. Look at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for a start, which is funding the entire wish list of this elite. The 89-year-old grey eminence, it says, of liberal globalism. It's not liberal. It's an inversion of liberal. The very opposite of it. Of glibral, that's a better word. Globalism announced the most important project of my life at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. What is the World Economic Forum? It is the annual get-together of the 1%. The 1% that is pushing this climate change hoax because it's planned to use that as an excuse to impose the global structure of top-down control based on a world government of the 1%. Describing the current state of the world as dire, well, thanks to you, with the strongest powers in the hands of would-be actual dictators. God, these people have no shame. Soros said he had put forth $1 billion towards the creation of the Open Society University Network, indoctrination network, revolving around his own Central European University. Get to the young, because they're going to be the adults when this is meant to come in big time. Get their minds early, and then you got them. As we've seen and are seeing all the time. Soros revealed that he has already partnered up with Bard College in the US and a network of European social science schools, which include the London School of Economics. He went there, as so many manipulators have done, by the way, including David Rockefeller, and the Paris Institute of Political Studies, also known as Sciences Po. He is seeking to expand the network into something truly global in the coming years. Of course you are. The announcement came as part of Soros's meandering speech at the gathering of global elites at Davos, which painted a dire picture of the world in the hands of would-be or actual dictators. When actual dictators are sitting in the audience, when actual dictators who use money to dictate and control of Silicon Valley, etc., to dictate, control of the mainstream media to dictate, are exactly the ones who organise the Davos conference at which Soros is railing against would-be dictators. You know the world is an inversion. You know the world is completely upside down. And you know, again, that these people have absolutely no shame. He singled out Trump, the Chinese leader, and the Indian leader, and paragons of open society, such as the European Union, being defeated by the UK decision to vote in a pro-Brexit government. Soros described Trump as a con man and the ultimate narcissist who wants the world to revolve around him. I can only think, if this guy has any shame at all, because he doesn't, that when he was speaking those words, someone was standing in front of him with a gigantic frickin' mirror. He accused the US leader of wanting to impose his alternative reality, not only on his followers, but on reality itself. This is a man who has spent so far $32 billion funding the Open Society Network in 100 countries to manipulate human society to his will, i.e., the will of the network he represents. It's unbelievable. The Hungarian-born billionaire, Hungary's thrown his network out of the country, could at least see what he was doing, held up climate change as a possible rallying cry of the Open Society adherents. He also praised the student-led protests in Hong Kong, holding them up as an example of what young people around the world can do when properly motivated. Properly manipulated, in truth. See, one of the things that this network is brilliant at is taking genuine grievances and turning them into protests that support what the network wants. And given there are endless genuine grievances, they have an endless list of things they can manipulate. This was the lead-in to his university project Reveal, though Soros hopes to unite all academically excellent but politically endangered scholars across the globe, whatever that means. Well, I'll tell you what it means. It's another inversion. What happens is academically excellent but politically endangered scholars are being politically endangered by the woke mentality that he funds and by political correctness that is destroying academic careers for not having the right opinions. And he's inverted that, and he's talking about the opposite being the case. Continuing his crusade against social media, which he also launched in Davos 2 years ago, Soros slammed Facebook for having a kind of informal mutual assistance operation with Trump. Facebook will work together to re-elect Trump, and Trump will work to protect Facebook so that this situation cannot be changed, and makes me very concerned about the outcome for 2020. Well, that is another colossal inversion, in that so many Trump supporters, and I think they're misguided because I think Trump's just another myth. He says one or two things I agree with, but he is so owned by this elite, not least through Israel, that the idea that he's draining the swamp is absolutely ridiculous. But so many Trump supporters and Trump supporting groups have actually been censored by Facebook. So everything he says, literally, I've said this many times, if you want to know what the truth is, then listen to what these people say, like Soros, and reverse it. And then you'll get much closer to the truth than's coming out of his mouth. So the article says, while claiming to champion democracy and open society, Soros has used massive amounts of money to influence national and local politics in the US, giving $5 million so far to the Democrats' 2020 efforts to unseat Trump, but also bankrolling local prosecutors with radical agendas. I've talked about this before. What he's been doing, because district attorneys get elected, he's been funding their election campaigns to get them elected. And when they get elected, they suddenly stop enforcing the law. This is why San Francisco is a shithole now, literally, in the streets. And so what that creates is what I've read in some of the documents of this network, a planned jungle atmosphere of fear and the strongest impose their will on others. You've got a situation in San Francisco where the law's been changed that basically you're not going to get prosecuted if you steal anything up to, I think it's $950. And you've got people, thieves, going into stores with calculators and stealing up to just below $950 because they know nothing will happen. This is where we've got. Now Soros is funding district attorneys into office all over America to impose agendas like this. And he is the savior of democracy, and he cares about people. And another story this week on climate change and on George Soros, again, shows the game. Because you don't just have to indoctrinate the young and indoctrinate as many people as you can by controlling the flow of information with a belief in this hoax of human-caused climate change, you have to stop other information that puts that claim in question. You have to stop that circulating. So here's another story. George Soros launches campaign to silence climate deniers on YouTube. And it's about the way, there's a video, you can see it. If you put that headline into davidicke.com, you'll be able to see the story and a video actually about this. He's funding groups that are pushing and pressing YouTube to ban videos that question climate change. And by the way, I'm just looking at this page, this story, and the video I'm talking about has, as you look at it on the page, the look that you get when a YouTube video is deleted. It's grey and with the 3 dots in the middle. And you look at that and most people will say, oh, that video's deleted. Well, I'm going to press the button. And there you go. The video is not deleted. It just appears to be so. And this has been done with my videos when they're embedded from YouTube on davidicke.com. And what it is an effort by the pathetic YouTube, that is owned by the same network that owns Soros, to get people to look at a video that they don't want people to look at and say, oh, it's been deleted. Then you press the button if you go that far and you find actually it's not. This is the level that we are going to now to stop the free flow of information. Why? People who know they can win a debate because they have the evidence and the argument are not frightened of other information challenging that because they know they'll win it. They'll know they'll win the debate. These people know they can't win the debate when faced with the free flow of information and debate. So they're shutting it down in every area, even down to this pathetic new policy of YouTube of making it look like a video that's not deleted has been deleted. Oh, but there's no conspiracy. It's just a conspiracy theory. And still with climate change and this 1% fest at Davos this week, here's another one. Prince Charles calls for green taxes as he meets Greta Thunberg in Davos, after flying in on a private jet, by the way, and pitches radical new world economy to tackle climate change, a day after Donald Trump rejected prophets of doom. That's an occasion where I did absolutely agree with Donald Trump. Whether he carries it through in reality is another thing, but where he's saying basically these prophets of doom about climate change are ridiculous. In the audience was Greta Thunberg, who has been made to be ridiculous by adults that are using her as a front to parrot utter garbage. Prince Charles demanded global green taxes as part of a radical push to tackle climate change in a seminal speech. Well, that's one way of describing it. It's not a word I'd use. At Davos, Prince Charles met Greta Thunberg at the World Economic Forum after flying into Switzerland in a private jet. Charles even sounded like the 17-year-old Swedish activist as he asked VIPs, do we want to go down in history as the people who didn't do anything to bring the world back from the brink? The only limit is our willingness to act, and the time is to act now. Well, if carbon dioxide is a dangerous pollutant threatening the world, it isn't, by the way, it's the gas of life. and is to the natural world, the plant world, the tree world, etc., the equivalent of oxygen. But if it is this pollutant, which they all claim, and most of them, the insiders, know it isn't, then look at the carbon footprint of the royal family and Prince Charles. Utterly colossal. Look at the carbon footprint of Al Gore, who's also at Davos spouting his garbage. Colossal. Godzilla-like in footprint. Utter hypocrites. But they know they're hypocrites, because it's not about telling the truth. It's about getting people to believe a lie because that suits your agenda for what you want to use that lie to justify. He then begged delegates, including wealthy global business leaders, the 1%, this is why I need your help, your ingenuity and your practical skills to ensure that the private sector leads the world out of the approaching catastrophe. This is a guy who told us that we had a period to save the world in 2009. That period has now passed. Remarkably, amazingly, miraculously, it's still frickin' here.